The phone slipped from Vincent Blackwood's hand, crashing against the marble floor of his penthouse office as the stranger's words echoed in his mind. The orphan girl you just hired as your maid is your daughter. At 38, he'd built an empire feared across 5 states, but nothing had ever knocked the air from his lungs quite like this revelation. Vincent stared at the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, his empire laid out before him like a glittering chessboard of high-rises and neon. Behind that carefully crafted exterior, designer suits, luxury cars, private jets, lay the ruthless calculations of a man who'd clawed his way from nothing to everything in just 2 decades. His fingers traced the thin scar along his jaw, a reminder of his first brush with death at 19 when he'd chosen power over love. That choice had cost him Sophia, the only woman who'd ever seen beyond the facade, who disappeared without a trace after their final explosive argument about the criminal path he was choosing. The security footage played on his tablet. Elena, the new maid, moving with quiet efficiency through the East Wing, her dark hair falling across features that had struck him as oddly familiar from the moment she'd arrived. Now he knew why. Those eyes were his own. That determined set of jaw mirrored the face that stared back at him every morning. Vincent buzzed his second-in-command, Marco, his voice betraying none of the earthquake happening inside him. "Get me everything on Elena Reyes. Birth certificate, orphanage records, every home she's ever lived in," he ordered, already calculating what enemies might use this information against him if word got out. He studied Elena's employee file, the photograph revealing details he'd somehow missed. The slight dimple when she smiled, identical to his own, the way her eyebrows arched when concentrating. Sophia's expression exactly. How had he not seen it immediately? A daughter he never knew existed, working under his own roof. The blood test results would take 24 hours, but Vincent already knew what they would show. He poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, remembering that night 18 years ago when he'd told Sophia their relationship was over, that his new business associates required his complete devotion. Vincent checked the security feed again, watching Elena methodically cleaning the library, completely unaware that her employer was the father she believed had abandoned her before birth. The file indicated she'd grown up in 7 different foster homes after her mother died of cancer when she was 10, never knowing her father's identity. He'd killed men with his bare hands, ordered executions without blinking, but the thought of approaching this girl, his flesh and blood, filled him with unfamiliar dread. Vincent Blackwood, who feared nothing and no one, found himself afraid of an 18-year-old orphan with his eyes in Sophia's gentle hands. Late night found him in his private gallery, surrounded by priceless art acquired through both legitimate and shadowy means, searching old photos until he found it, the only picture of Sophia he'd kept. The resemblance between mother and daughter was undeniable, though Elena carried herself with a guarded wariness Sophia had never possessed. Vincent's security chief entered without knocking, laying down a comprehensive dossier. "She's clean, boss. No criminal record, excellent references from previous employers, graduated top of her class despite moving between foster homes." The unspoken question hung in the air. Why was the boss so interested in a maid? The man who ruled his empire with unforgiving precision now found himself studying footage of Elena's movements throughout his mansion, noting the book she paused to examine in his library, how she stopped to gently touch a wilting orchid in the conservatory. What kind of father would he have been if he'd known about her? The call came at midnight, his source at the hospital confirming the DNA match. 99.9998% probability of paternity. Vincent sat alone in his office, the weight of 18 lost years pressing down on shoulders accustomed to carrying only the burden of power, never regret. The decision crystallized as dawn broke over the city he controlled through fear and strategic violence. Vincent would approach Elena today, reveal the truth, and then what? Offer her money? Education? Or the darkest gift of all, a place in his world of luxury built on bloodshed? His reflection showed a man at the crossroads, a kingpin facing the one threat he never anticipated, the sudden, unwelcome emergence of a conscience, awakened by the daughter he never knew existed. Vincent Blackwood straightened his tie, summoning the courage to face the one person who might see him not as a mafia boss, but simply as the father who never knew she was alive. Vincent's finger hovered over the intercom button that would summon Elena to his office, a man accustomed to issuing life-or-death commands now hesitating over the simplest of actions. The anonymous caller had refused to identify himself, claiming only to be someone who knows Sophia would have wanted her daughter to know the truth. The security team had traced the call to a burner phone discarded in a trash can 6 blocks away. the mystery deepening when surveillance footage revealed a hooded figure impossible to identify. Someone close to Vincent knew his secret, possibly someone within his own organization, who saw an opportunity for leverage. Elena knocked precisely at 10 a.m. as requested, her uniform impeccable, expression neutral, but with a hint of apprehension. Meetings with the boss typically meant dismissal in her experience. She stood with perfect posture, hands clasped before her, unaware she was standing before the man whose blood ran through her veins. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Blackwood?" Her voice carried a subtle musical quality that transported Vincent back 18 years, to candlelit dinners with Sophia before everything changed, before he chose this life over the possibility of a family he never knew was already beginning. Vincent gestured to the chair across from his desk, noticing how she perched on its edge, ready to flee at the first sign of danger, a survival instinct developed through years in the foster system. "How are you finding your position here, Ms. Reyes?" he asked, studying features that were a haunting blend of himself and Sophia. Elena's response was measured, professional, revealing nothing of her inner thoughts, as she spoke of her duties and appreciation for the employment opportunity. Behind her carefully constructed answers, Vincent recognized his own tendency to reveal only what was necessary, to keep vulnerabilities hidden beneath layers of practiced control. "I understand you grew up in the foster system," Vincent said, watching her eyes narrow slightly at the personal nature of the question. "Your file mentions your mother passed when you were 10, but there's no information about your father." The subtle shift in her posture, a straightening of the spine, a tightening around the eyes, told Vincent everything about her feelings toward her unknown father. "My mother told me he died before I was born," Elena replied, the slight tremor in her voice betraying the lie she'd been told and had come to believe. Vincent turned to the window, buying precious seconds to compose himself before making a decision that would irrevocably change both their lives. "I knew your mother, Sophia Reyes," he said finally, each word carefully chosen. "We were close, many years ago." The silence stretched between them, Elena's quick intake of breath, the only indication she understood the implication of his words. Her fingers gripped the armrests, knuckles whitening as 18 years of questions suddenly rushed toward a possible answer she hadn't been seeking. "Yesterday, I received an anonymous call informing me that you are my daughter," Vincent continued, turning to face her directly for the first time since dropping this bombshell. "I've confirmed it with DNA testing using your employment health screening. I had no idea you existed until yesterday." Elena's face drained of color, her carefully maintained composure crumbling as she processed his words, emotions flashing across features that mirrored his own, shock, disbelief, anger, and beneath it all, a lifetime of wondering suddenly answered. "That's impossible," she whispered, though her eyes said she already knew it wasn't. Vincent slid a folder across the desk containing birth certificates, DNA results, and photos of Sophia that he'd kept hidden for nearly 2 decades. "Your mother never told me she was pregnant," he explained, the closest he'd come to an apology in years. "She disappeared after we parted ways." Their conversation was interrupted by Marco bursting through the door without knocking, an unprecedented breach of protocol that could only mean serious trouble. "Boss, we've got a problem. Someone just leaked photos of you and Elena to the Calabrese family with claims she's your daughter." Vincent's mind shifted instantly from father to strategist, recognizing that whoever made the anonymous call had just escalated the situation dramatically. "The timing isn't coincidental," he stated coldly, years of survival instinct taking over. "Someone wants to use my daughter as leverage." Elena stood abruptly, nearly toppling the chair behind her, eyes darting between Vincent and his lieutenant, with the wariness of someone who'd learned early that adults were seldom trustworthy. "This is insane. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not part of whatever this is," she declared, backing toward the door. Vincent raised a hand, stopping Marco from blocking her exit with a silent command that surprised his second-in-command. The boss never let anyone walk away during crucial conversations. "You're in danger whether you believe me or not," Vincent stated flatly. "The Calabrese family has been looking for leverage against me for years." The mention of danger, rather than the revelation of paternity, finally broke through Elena's shock, her survival instincts visibly kicking in as she assessed the seriousness in both men's expressions. "How would anyone know that we're related, when I didn't even know until 2 minutes ago? The same person who called me yesterday clearly has access to confidential information and wants to create chaos," Vincent explained, mind racing through possibilities. A traitor in his organization, an enemy who'd discovered his past, or someone from Sophia's life who'd kept this secret for 18 years. Elena's eyes, so like his own, narrowed in calculation as she processed this information with remarkable speed, another inherited trait making itself known. My mother's sister, Aunt Lena, always claimed my father wasn't dead but as good as. She died 3 months ago, but she had a husband who blamed my mother for ruining her life. Vincent's phone chimed with an alert from his security team. A black sedan with tinted windows had been circling the block for the past hour. Calabrese scouts, undoubtedly, moving quickly now that they believed they had identified his weakness. "We need to move you somewhere safe immediately," he said, already texting coded instructions to his most trusted guards. Elena crossed her arms defensively, showing unexpected steel in her response. "I'm not going anywhere with you until you explain exactly what kind of danger we're talking about, who these Calabrese people are, and why finding out you're my biological father puts a target on my back." For the first time in his adult life, Vincent found himself explaining rather than commanding, detailing the decades-long blood feud between his organization and the Calabrese family in terms stripped of criminal implications. "They believe hurting you would hurt me, and they're right," he admitted, the last 3 words surprising even himself. The security alarm pulsed silently on Vincent's phone as Elena processed this information, her expression shifting from disbelief to calculation, in a way that reminded him so much of Sophia. It physically hurt. "If what you're saying is true, about being my father, why should I believe you actually care what happens to me after 18 years of nothing?" Vincent reached into his desk drawer, withdrawing a worn photograph he'd kept hidden all these years. Sophia laughing in the sunlight, her head thrown back with joy, taken when they were barely more than teenagers with dreams that had nothing to do with criminal empires. "Because she would never forgive me if I failed to protect you now that I know you exist." His words hung in the air between them, neither admission nor apology, but something raw and honest that seemed to reach Elena in a way nothing else had. "I don't need a father, Mr. Blackwood," she said finally, straightening her shoulders with dignity that belied her 18 years. "But I'm not stupid enough to reject protection if these people really want to hurt me." Vincent nodded once, a decision made as he pressed the intercom. "Secure Protocol Alpha, East Wing, immediate extraction." Within seconds, 4 of his most trusted security personnel appeared, surrounding but not touching Elena, as Vincent issued crisp instructions for her relocation to his most secure property upstate. As they prepared to move, Elena turned back with one final question, her voice steady, despite the fear visible in her eyes. "Did you love her? My mother?" The vulnerability in the question pierced Vincent's carefully constructed armor, forcing him to confront emotions buried for nearly 2 decades. Vincent Blackwood, feared across 5 states and respected across continents, found himself unable to lie to this girl who carried his blood and Sophia's spirit. "Yes," he answered simply, "more than the empire I built after losing her." The moment was interrupted by the distinctive crack of gunfire from the street below, the Calabrese family moving faster than anticipated, forcing father and daughter into a dangerous new chapter neither had seen coming. Vincent moved instinctively toward Elena, protection overriding all other considerations as 18 years of absence collapsed into a single, critical moment of choice. The bulletproof SUV sped through Manhattan streets. Elena pressed against the leather seat as Vincent made calls in a language she didn't recognize. Romanian, she would later learn. Her entire world had collapsed and reconstructed itself in less than an hour, the man beside her simultaneously a stranger and her biological father. Vincent's secluded Catskills compound emerged from dense forest after a 2-hour drive, a modernist structure of glass and concrete that seemed to grow organically from the mountainside. Unlike his penthouse designed to impress business associates, this retreat revealed a different side of Vincent. Bookshelves lined with well-worn classics, a grand piano in the corner, photographs of landscapes rather than people. "Your mother was a concert pianist," Vincent said quietly, as Elena's fingers hovered over the piano keys, the first personal information he'd volunteered since they'd fled the city. "She was performing at a charity event I was forced to attend. I hated classical music until I heard her play Chopin that night." Elena's hands dropped to her sides, this unexpected glimpse into her mother's life more disarming than any revelation about Vincent's criminal empire. "She taught me to play when I was little," she admitted, the first crack in her defensive wall. "But I stopped after she died. The foster families couldn't afford lessons." The DNA results lay spread across the granite kitchen island between them, irrefutable science confirming what their matching eyes and identical expressions of stubbornness already suggested. Elena traced the pattern of genetic markers that connected her to this dangerous man, searching for answers in the scientific data that emotions couldn't provide. Uncle Roberto, my mother's brother-in-law, he always watched me oddly during family gatherings, like he knew something no one else did, Elena said, piecing together childhood memories through this new lens. He disappeared right after Aunt Lena's funeral 3 months ago. Vincent's security chief entered with a tablet displaying surveillance photos of Roberto Diaz entering a known Calabrese establishment 2 weeks prior, the connection finally clear. He waited until your aunt died to use the information she'd kept secret all these years, Vincent explained, rage simmering beneath his controlled exterior. Elena studied her father's face as he reviewed security protocols with his team, recognizing her own expressions mirrored in his features, the slight furrow between eyebrows when concentrating, the way his jaw tightened when concerned. These genetic echoes were more convincing than any DNA test could ever be. Your mother discovered she was pregnant after we ended things, Vincent explained when they were alone again. Medical records from 18 years ago displayed on his tablet. She left the city that same week, leaving no forwarding address. Her sister must have helped her disappear. The timeline aligned perfectly with Elena's birth certificate, her mother's relocation to a small Massachusetts town, the modest life they'd led before cancer took Sophia when Elena was 10. She told me my father died in an accident before I was born, Elena said, the weight of her mother's lie finally settling on her shoulders. Vincent's fingers hovered over a photo of Sophia holding infant Elena, his expression revealing a pain he couldn't articulate. She knew what my life was becoming, what I was becoming, he admitted, offering the closest thing to an explanation he seemed capable of giving. She made the right choice for you. Elena moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching security personnel patrol the perimeter of the property with military precision. These people who are after me, after us, you're not just some wealthy businessman, are you? She asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it directly. Vincent crossed the room to stand beside her, their reflections superimposed over the darkening forest beyond the glass. I run an organization that operates outside conventional laws, he stated without embellishment, neither glorifying nor apologizing for the empire he'd built. Some call it organized crime. I call it alternative governance. The revelation should have shocked her, but Elena found herself nodding with strange acceptance, as though some part of her had always known there was something extraordinary about her unknown father. Is that why you never looked for her, for us, after you became powerful? She asked, the question she'd been holding since learning his identity. Vincent turned to face her directly, allowing Elena to see the unguarded truth in eyes identical to her own. I convinced myself she was better without me, that you both were safer if I stayed away. I never knew she was pregnant when she left, but even if I had, I would have made the same choice she did. The morning dawned with Elena finding Vincent in his study reviewing security footage from every angle of the compound. Sleepless and vigilant after intercepted communications confirmed Calabrese foot soldiers were searching the area. Father and daughter circled each other cautiously, connected by blood, but separated by 18 years of absence, and the stark reality of Vincent's dangerous world. Your mother kept journals, Vincent said, sliding a worn leather book across the table during breakfast, its pages filled with Sophia's elegant handwriting. My team recovered them from your apartment while securing your belongings. She wrote to you about me, about why she left. Elena's hands trembled as she opened the journal to a marked page, her mother's voice reaching across time and death. My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you've somehow found your father, Vincent. I didn't leave because he was a bad man, but because he was becoming someone I couldn't follow, and I had to protect you both from the consequences of his choices. The pages revealed a love story Elena had never imagined. Her mother, a talented musician from a respectable family, falling for the ambitious son of immigrants who promised to build an empire worthy of her. Sophia had seen the dangerous path Vincent was choosing, but loved him despite it, leaving only when she discovered she was carrying his child. She never wanted me to find you, Vincent acknowledged, after Elena had read through tear-blurred eyes. But she also didn't want you to hate me. She was extraordinary that way, finding compassion where others couldn't. Elena closed the journal, conflicting emotions battling across her face as she processed 18 years of half-truths. She wrote that she planned to tell me everything when I turned 18. She just didn't live long enough to keep that promise. Vincent's security chief interrupted with urgent news. Roberto Diaz had been located in a Calabrese safe house across the state line. Interrogation revealing he'd sold information about Elena to multiple interested parties after discovering Sophia's hidden documents. The situation had escalated beyond a simple family secret into a potential war between criminal organizations. What happens now? Elena asked, the reality of her situation sinking in as she watched armed guards reinforcing perimeter security. I can't just go back to being a maid or pretend none of this is happening. People are trying to kill me because of who you are. Vincent studied his daughter's face, seeing Sophia's strength reflected in her determined expression, despite the fear she couldn't fully hide. You have options that don't include this life, he said, surprising himself with the offer. I can create a new identity for you, somewhere the Calabrese could never find you. Elena's laugh held no humor, just bitter acknowledgement of her reality. You mean disappear, like Mom did? Start over as someone else? Always looking over my shoulder, wondering if today's the day my past catches up with me? The truth hung between them. Elena was a Blackwood, regardless of what name she carried, and her father's enemies would never stop hunting for such valuable leverage. Roberto told the Calabrese family, I'm your weakness, she stated flatly, meeting Vincent's gaze without flinching. And they believe it because it's true, isn't it? Vincent's silence was answer enough, his expression revealing what his criminal associates had never seen. Vulnerability. I've spent my life eliminating weaknesses, he finally admitted. But I can't eliminate you, even though that would be the logical solution. Elena moved to the window, tracking the movement of guards through the trees, her reflection showing a young woman standing straighter than she had the day before. Teach me, she said suddenly, turning to face the father she'd only just met. If I'm going to be a target for the rest of my life, I want to know how to fight back. The request stunned Vincent into momentary silence, parental protection warring with grudging respect for her pragmatism. Learning what I know isn't just about self-defense, he warned. It changes you, reshapes how you see the world and your place in it. There's no going back. Elena's smile held a shadow of her mother's determination, but with an edge Sophia had never possessed. I think we both know I stopped being just an orphaned maid the moment you confirmed I'm your daughter. I didn't choose this life, but I'm choosing how I respond to it. The Calabrese family made their first serious move 3 days later, a sophisticated cyber attack targeting Vincent's financial networks, followed by coordinated strikes against 2 of his legitimate businesses in Manhattan. The message was clear: surrender Elena, or watch his empire crumble piece by piece. Vincent stood in his command center buried beneath the Catskills compound, multiple screens displaying the damage reports, while Elena watched from the doorway, witnessing firsthand the scope of her father's organization. They're testing your defenses, she observed with unexpected insight, seeing how far you'll go to protect me. Marco approached with tablet in hand, displaying surveillance photos of Salvatore Calabrese himself, arriving at his family's Hudson Valley estate, an unprecedented move that signaled the seriousness of their intentions. The old man never leaves Boston unless blood is about to be spilled, Marco explained, concern evident beneath his professional demeanor. Vincent dismissed his lieutenants with a gesture, waiting until the room cleared before addressing his daughter. The Calabreses believe that because you're a civilian, innocent of my world, I'll sacrifice my business interests to keep you safe, he explained, studying her reaction carefully. They don't understand that Blackwoods protect their own, regardless of the cost. Elena absorbed his words, recognizing the implicit acknowledgement that he now considered her truly family, not just a biological connection or liability. These men targeting us, what would they do if they captured me? She asked directly, refusing the comfort of pleasant lies. Vincent's expression hardened, unwilling to shield her from the brutal reality of the situation. They would use you against me in whatever way proved most effective. Physical harm, psychological torture, manipulation, until I gave them what they want: control of my territory and operations. The stark assessment hung in the air between them, father and daughter united in their unflinching acceptance of the danger. Then we need to change the equation, Elena suggested, approaching the tactical display with newfound determination. If I'm no longer just your weakness, but also your strength, their entire strategy falls apart. Vincent raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself by her reasoning. Explain, he commanded, the business tone slipping into his voice automatically before softening as he added, please. Elena gestured to the organizational chart displayed on the main screen, quickly grasping the hierarchy of Vincent's empire. They expect you to hide me away while they dismantle everything you've built. What if instead, you introduce me publicly as your heir and successor? The audacity of her suggestion stunned even Vincent, who had built his reputation on bold, unexpected moves that kept his enemies perpetually off balance. That would paint an even larger target on your back, he pointed out, though his tactical mind was already calculating the potential advantages of such a shocking announcement. Elena's smile held a coldness that reminded Vincent uncomfortably of himself at her age. But it would change the narrative completely. I'm no longer just your vulnerability, but your strategic asset, publicly acknowledged, and therefore impossible to eliminate quietly, without starting an all-out war no one wants. Vincent studied his daughter with new appreciation, recognizing not just Sophia's beauty, but his own strategic brilliance reflected back at him. The Calabrases won't believe it's genuine. They'll see it as a desperate ploy, he countered, testing her reasoning rather than dismissing it outright. Elena moved to the digital map displaying territory boundaries throughout the northeast, her finger tracing the contested areas where Calabrese and Blackwood interests overlapped. Then make them believe it. Give me actual authority over something valuable, something they want, with your very public backing. Vincent's phone chimed with an encrypted message from his source inside Calabrese's organization. The old man had placed a $5 million bounty on Elena, dead or alive. We have 24 hours before every hired gun on the East Coast starts hunting for you, he informed her, decision crystallizing as he watched fear flicker across her face, immediately replaced by determination. The plan came together with military precision, security protocols established, loyal members informed, a carefully orchestrated public appearance scheduled for the following evening at Vincent's most exclusive Manhattan club. Elena would step into the spotlight not as a victim to be protected, but as the newly discovered Blackwood heir, changing the rules of engagement overnight. As dawn broke over the mountains, Vincent found Elena in Sophia's reading room, surrounded by journals that chronicled the life she should have shared with both parents. "Are you certain you want this?" he asked quietly, offering one last chance to choose a different path. "Once we announce you as my daughter and heir, there's no going back to anonymity. Ever." Elena stood before the mirror in what had once been her mother's closet, now filled with designer clothing rushed in overnight by Vincent's staff. The transformation from maid to Mafia princess was made manifest in Armani and Louboutin, a metamorphosis as sudden as the revelation of her parentage. "I choose this," she answered firmly, meeting her father's reflection behind her. "I choose to face what's coming rather than spend my life running from it." Vincent nodded once, approval and concern warring in his expression, as he handed her a small velvet box. Inside lay Sophia's diamond pendant, the only gift she had kept after leaving him 18 years ago. "Your mother wore this the night we met," he explained, fastening the necklace around Elena's throat. "It should have been yours all along." The helicopter journey into Manhattan unfolded in tense silence, the city lights glittering below like the empire Vincent had built. Elena absorbed his briefing on key players she would meet that evening with remarkable focus. Vincent's club, Sovereignty, occupied the top 3 floors of a midtown building he owned outright. Its exclusive clientele represented the intersection of legitimate power and shadow authority in New York City. Elena felt eyes tracking her entrance, whispers following in her wake as Vincent guided her through the crowd. His protective hand hovered near her back, not touching, but close enough to intervene if necessary. "Remember what I told you," Vincent murmured as they approached his private table overlooking the dance floor. "Stand tall, make direct eye contact, speak only when necessary, and never apologize for anything." The assembled lieutenants rose as Vincent approached, their curious gazes sliding from him to Elena. Some showed surprise, others calculation, and a few displayed poorly disguised hostility at this sudden change in hierarchy. "Gentlemen," Vincent announced with deceptive casualness, "allow me to introduce my daughter and heir, Elena Blackwood, Sophia's child." A ripple of shocked murmurs spread through the gathering, Marco stepping forward first to kiss Elena's hand. "Your mother was a remarkable woman," he said with unexpected gentleness. "Vincent was never the same after she left." The others followed Marco's lead, falling into line behind Vincent's declaration with varying degrees of sincerity. Across the room, Elena noticed a distinguished older man watching their tableau with undisguised interest. Salvatore Calabrese himself. "You carry yourself like your father," observed Dominic, Vincent's financial strategist. "The same watchfulness, the same way of measuring each word before speaking. It's uncanny." Vincent surveyed the room from his position at Elena's side, noting the placement of Calabrese's men. "You've managed something remarkable tonight," he acknowledged quietly. "You've made them believe this isn't just strategy. They see you as a true Blackwood." The evening progressed like an elaborate chess match, Elena proving her natural aptitude for Vincent's world. She navigated conversations with political figures, legitimate business partners, and criminal associates with equal poise. The carefully choreographed encounter with Calabrese ended in a stalemate of polite threats and veiled promises. Both patriarchs retreated to neutral corners, while their subordinates circled each other warily. 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of education, Vincent transforming Elena from civilian to confidant. He taught her the intricacies of his operation, from financial structures to security protocols, with methodical precision. "Your mother would be horrified," Vincent admitted during a rare quiet moment in his study. "She left to keep you from becoming what I am, what you're becoming now." Elena looked up from the documents spread across his desk, her expression a complex blend of determination and vulnerability. "Mom protected me from your world until she couldn't anymore, but she also made sure I could protect myself when the time came." The fragile peace shattered on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when Elena's security detail was ambushed. What should have been a routine visit to Vincent's downtown office turned into a professional strike that left 3 guards dead and Elena missing. Vincent received the video 30 minutes later, Elena bound to a chair in an undisclosed location. A masked figure delivered terms for her safe return. Surrender the entire operation or watch his newly discovered daughter die slowly on livestream. "This isn't Calabrese," Marco insisted, as Vincent's technical team worked to trace the video's origin. "Too sloppy, too public. Salvatore would never break protocol this way, not when negotiations were proceeding." Vincent studied the footage frame by frame, noticing details others missed. Elena's eyes blinking in a pattern he recognized from their security briefings. Her bound hands were positioned in a way that communicated specific information to those who knew how to interpret it. Elena's hastily learned code revealed more than just her location. She had identified at least one of her captors as formerly employed by the Calabrese family. This crucial detail suggested a rogue operation rather than a sanctioned move, explaining why the kidnapping violated established underworld protocols. What Roberto failed to realize was that Elena had inherited more than just Vincent's features. She possessed his strategic mind and iron will. Throughout her captivity, she had been systematically cataloging every sound, every glimpse of her surroundings, building a mental map that she now transmitted through subtle movements. Vincent recognized something in his daughter that he'd rarely seen in his most hardened associates, a preternatural calm in the face of mortal danger. Where others would have broken under the pressure, Elena had transformed her fear into a tactical advantage, buying time while gathering intelligence. "It's Roberto," Vincent concluded, identifying the mastermind behind Elena's kidnapping. "He's playing both sides, selling information to Calabrese while executing his own revenge plan against me for Sophia's sake." The rescue operation assembled with military precision, Vincent's elite security team supplemented by specialists brought in from his international connections. The abandoned textile factory on Staten Island matched the environmental clues Elena had communicated through her coded signals. Vincent insisted on leading the assault himself, surprising his lieutenants who had never seen him personally engage in tactical operations. "She is my daughter," he stated simply, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. "If this goes wrong, I will be the one to face her." Elena had not remained passive during her captivity, working methodically to loosen her restraints while engaging her captor. "You never forgave my mother for choosing Vincent over your brother," she stated calmly as Roberto paced before her. "This isn't about business. It's about your personal vendetta." Roberto's composure cracked at Elena's psychological probing, his decades-old resentment spilling forth. "Your mother destroyed our family when she fell for that criminal," he spat, gesturing wildly with his weapon. "My brother died waiting for her to come back." The rescue team breached the perimeter with synchronized precision, neutralizing the hired security with non-lethal efficiency. Vincent moved directly toward the central office where Elena was being held, hearing Roberto's increasingly unhinged monologue through his tactical earpiece. Vincent entered the room silently, as Roberto turned his back on Elena, finding his daughter meeting his gaze with remarkable composure. Their silent communication, a lifetime of shared instinct compressed into 3 weeks of connection, allowed them to coordinate without words. The revelation of Roberto's treachery created an unexpected opportunity for alliance between the Blackwood and Calabrese organizations. Salvatore himself reached out to acknowledge the violation of established protocols and offered a formal meeting. Elena's kidnapping and successful rescue transformed her status within Vincent's organization. Her quick thinking and natural aptitude for crisis management earned genuine respect from even the most skeptical lieutenants. The summit between families took place on neutral territory, a private dining room at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Vincent and Salvatore arrived with minimal security, each accompanied by their most trusted advisor, and, in Vincent's case, Elena herself. "My granddaughter speaks highly of your daughter," Salvatore remarked, as preliminary discussions established the framework for a lasting peace. "Isabella noticed her composure at your club that night, said she carried herself with unusual dignity." Vincent's surprise must have shown briefly on his face, because Salvatore smiled with unexpected warmth. "You thought I came to your territory to threaten you? I came to see this remarkable daughter everyone was whispering about." The negotiation proceeded with surprising collegiality, both patriarchs recognizing the potential benefits of collaboration over conflict. External threats from international organizations pressed upon their traditional territories, creating common ground. Elena contributed to the discussion with insightful observations about modernizing certain aspects of both family operations. Her background in technology revealed opportunities neither patriarch had fully recognized. Her proposed digital currency exchange would allow both families to launder proceeds with unprecedented efficiency, while simultaneously positioning them as legitimate pioneers in financial technology. The brilliance lay in its duality, a system both perfectly legal on its surface and infinitely adaptable to their shadow requirements. Isabella Calabresi, Salvatore's granddaughter who had been groomed for leadership since childhood, found herself unexpectedly aligned with Elena's vision. The two women exchanged knowing glances across the negotiating table, silently acknowledging that their generation might forge connections their fathers never could. Vincent observed this unspoken female alliance with private satisfaction, recognizing a potential partnership that transcended the old blood feuds. Elena had accomplished in weeks what he couldn't achieve in decades, creating a path toward legitimate power that wouldn't require constant vigilance against assassination attempts. "Your daughter has vision," Salvatore commented to Vincent as they concluded the preliminary agreement. "Sophia would be proud of the woman she's become, despite the path that brought her here, perhaps because of it." The mention of Sophia's name no longer pierced Vincent with regret, but instead filled him with quiet gratitude. Elena carried her mother's compassion alongside his own determination, a powerful combination neither had anticipated. The formal alliance was sealed through Vincent's unprecedented decision to establish a charitable foundation in Sophia's name. Dedicated to supporting children in the foster system, it would be administered jointly by both families, with Elena serving as executive director. "Some will see this as weakness," Marco warned privately as they left the museum. "Compassion has never been the currency of our world. They'll test this new arrangement, push to see where the true boundaries lie." Vincent watched Elena walking slightly ahead of them, her confident stride revealing nothing of the trauma she'd experienced. "Let them test us," he replied with quiet certainty. "They'll find the boundaries exactly where we place them." The transformation of Vincent's organization occurred gradually over the following months. Elena's influence softened some of the harsher aspects of his operation, while reinforcing others with innovative approaches to security and territorial management. "I found these in Mom's things," Elena said one evening, presenting Vincent with architectural drawings. She never stopped creating beauty, even knowing what darkness existed in the world. "I think that's what made her extraordinary." Vincent studied the detailed plans, recognizing Sophia's distinctive aesthetic in every element of the design. "We'll build it," he decided immediately. Exactly as she envisioned, in the location she chose. The groundbreaking ceremony 6 months later marked a public turning point for the Blackwood family. What the public didn't know was that it also commemorated the complete restructuring of Vincent's empire into legitimate businesses, guided by Elena's vision. Thank you all for following this story. If you're enjoying it, write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, as your support is important for me to continue creating content here.